Welcome to THA Talks, for free thought and open minds. Hello, I'm Paul Obitelli and welcome to another edition of THA Talks, the alternative podcast show from the UK. Our talks include news, conspiracies, spirituality, the occult, science, history, art, philosophy, religion and much more. If you'd like to check out our full archive, just go to www.thatalks.com to listen to or to download all our free content. And if there's anyone who'd like to contact us and give some feedback, maybe you'd like to recommend a guest for the show, you can email us at info@thatalks.com, or you can go to our website and contact us via the contact tab there. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the show via our RSS feed, and you can also find us on iTunes and Stitcher and many other podcast directories out there. Well, thank you all for tuning in again here to THA Talks, wherever you are, whenever it may be. It's good to be with you. It's been a crazy few weeks as we've entered into 2012, as we thought it would be. In America, we've got the Trump situation. We've also had a huge protests out there and around the world with feminists protesting. And we've also had Brexit, which is ongoing. The battle continues over here. Is democracy being threatened at the moment in the West? Because sometimes it seems like that to me. It seems to be on weak legs. And it just seems to, I think another thing, I think a lot of people that perhaps have said in the past that they're not into politics, it's a load of rubbish. I think although there's probably people that still think that, I think there's also a lot more of people that have been like that in the past that now they're getting glued to this because things are certainly changing. How genuine things are, we don't know. That's very difficult to tell from our position, but it's getting very interesting, that's for sure. And this whole feminist frenzy, I would like to cover that a little bit more on the shows. Or we haven't really had a show about feminism, and it's another controversial subject. A lot of people out there will be firmly behind feminism. A lot of people think it's something that's not what it appears to be. I'm one of those people. Made that clear on the show before. I do not regard myself as a feminist, although I do believe in a world that tries its hardest to offer everyone an equal opportunity in life to make something of a life and to do what they want to do. But whether we're being presented with the movements that are really pushing for that or not, for me is a different question altogether. But that is a subject we'd like to cover, and obviously all this frenzy that's going on with Trump and Brexit and the direction of the West at the moment, these are subjects that we've just got to, I think it's inevitable, we've got to really touch on, and it's something that maybe we don't do quite enough on the show, I think, and we will start covering that. So yeah, as per usual, if you guys have any advice on that or any recommendations, feel free to contact us and let us know, because you're pretty good at that. But today, we're actually going to be chilling a little bit and having a bit of a laugh, I think. But before we go there, I think it is time to go to the other side of London for a surge and a dramaturge and a man called David Barry.
Paul, why this feeling? Why this glow? Why this thrill when you say hello? That was flat. It's a strange and tender magic you do, Mr. Wonderful. That's you and our guest this evening. How are you, Paul?
You can't just do a laugh in the middle of a verse.
I can do whatever I want. I'm not a singer.
Oh, well, that's true, I suppose. Yes, no, how are you?
I'm still recovering. My voice has hardly been back for days, thank you.
Yeah, your voice is sounding better now. It wasn't long ago that you sounded a bit like a horse last time I spoke to you.
A horse that couldn't be heard, which made it even worse.
Yeah, it was a lot of it going around, still is at the moment, but thankfully I think we're all coming out the other side of that. And it's
I think we're finally getting there. So.
Yeah. Well, I think today's guest is going to cheer us up a little bit, do you reckon?
Well, I mean, how ultra spiritual can you and I actually be compared to the remarkable J.P. Sears, who of course has become a phenomenon on YouTube
Yeah.
with his endless wisdom and guidance in how we too can become ultra spiritual, but of course not on his exalted level. So I'm looking forward very, very much indeed to discussing his life, his work, his competitive spirituality, and why he feels we would all benefit from it.
Well, I think I heard a little bird tells me that he might be looking to represent America in the spirituality Olympic competition.
I'm sure he'd already have gold. Afternoon, JP Sears, and welcome to THA Talks.
Thank you, my friend. I am very happy to be here with you guys.
We are resonating on an ultra level. I mean, I can't tell you how browbeaten and honored we feel to have a man of your elevated enlightenment on the show. And the fact your intuitions probably knew that already.
Yeah, it did. And my intuition also knew that I knew that already. So I think we're all good there. But yeah, I'm honored to be on your show. And I'm also honored that you would be a bit browbeaten. I think when people can self-destruct in my presence, it makes me feel a little bit more significant and whole as a person.
What can one say? Truly wonderful. JP, would you tell us something about your background and how you became ultra spiritual?
Yeah, so my background, for the past 15 years, I've earned my living predominantly as an emotional healing coach, where I've had my one-on-one client practice, helping people help themselves to heal their hearts and find more meaning in their lives. And I've also done a lot of teaching and leading retreats and healing and self-growth. And along the way, actually, ever since I was a child and certainly into my career, I've had just a sense of humor. I've had my sense of humor, and it's not my whole personality, but it's certainly a part of my personality. And it took me, I guess, 13 years into my career before I really let my sense of humor come out and have space in the professional light. I gave myself, I told myself a story that it's just bad for business if I'm letting my humor come out, because, emotional healing people and spiritual people are supposed to be serious, incredibly insightful, and incredibly boring. So I did my best to kind of conform, not to the standard anybody told me I should be, but to the standard I was delusional enough to tell myself I should be. And nonetheless, about 2 years ago, I decided to betray that story. I was, I guess, sick and tired of sweeping a part of me under the rug, not letting him come out. And when I made my first comedy video, which was called How to Be Ultra Spiritual, I still thought it would be bad for business, but I knew I had to do it to satisfy the creative spirit inside of me. I'm a big fan of believing that we all have something that wants to live through us. It's not necessarily what we want, but it's maybe from whatever the hell's beyond us, what it wants, whether that's our soul, higher self, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, Donald Trump. Don't really know, but I just knew there was something that wanted to live through me, and I had to say yes to it. And that was the comedy that, at the time, I thought it was just going to be a one-time video, and I'm ecstatic and very grateful also that it's just continued to grow, where I continue to do the videos, and it's opened up a lot of doors of opportunity for me. And mostly with all of that, the expressing my ultra spiritual side has created a real deep sense of inner fulfillment for me. I won't pretend that it's all I need to be fulfilled and content, yet it's a huge creative satisfaction that gives me fulfillment that I had never known before in my life before I started the comedy videos.
I'm overwhelmed, JP. I'm overwhelmed. I mean, also by the fact I never thought I'd hear the Easter Bunny and Donald Trump in the same sentence.
Yeah, and by the way, have you ever seen them in the same place at the same time?
No, it's strange you say that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
We're solving some mysteries here already. I'm excited for the people that are listening.
I can feel the energy growing already, JP. I mean, there was a phrase you used in one of the early shows which singularly caught my attention. Competitive spirituality. Would you care to unpack that?
Yeah, so competitive spirituality is that's when we're building up a sense of significance, and really in an egotistical sense of significance, based on how much more spiritual we can be than other people. So, how long do you meditate? Oh, well, that's too bad because I meditate longer than you. How often do you do yoga? How vegan are you? And how long have you been a vegan? And are you a raw vegan? If not, too bad for you. I've got the trump card. He or she doesn't seem to be too conscious, or it, if we want like a gender neutral statement. So it doesn't seem to be too conscious. Luckily, I'm more conscious. So I think there's a bit of a paradoxical irony that happens in the spiritual world. Honestly, I think it happens anywhere, in any landscape, any culture, any philosophy where people go. But we're talking about the philosophy of spirituality here for a second. There's a philosophy or there's a tendency, if you will, in whatever the philosophy is, that the ego wants to gratify itself. The ego will be egotistical wherever it goes. So if there's a person in the spiritual world, there that person is with their human ego. Welcome to the human condition. We all have one, at least from my delusional point of view. So I see a lot of people, and by a lot of people, I mean I've seen myself for years, have this egotistical agenda with my spirituality. And it's weird because to me, spirituality is all about connecting to something beyond ourself, which I think at the same time means connecting to something deep within ourself. And then I think the ego is all about disconnecting from that which is deeper and disconnecting from that which is beyond us to make ourself the whole world. I think at the heart of any ego is narcissism. So here we are having like this sleight of hand in this spiritual world where we have these egotistical agendas, behaviors, thoughts, and feelings playing out, yet they're subtle. We're hiding them in very noble, altruistic hiding spots. So our very behaviors, egotistical agendas, are being hidden even from our own self. So anyway, I have seen a lot of this happen, and I can't say enough. I own this. I've done it, and honestly, I still do it quite a bit, where competitive spirituality is what we do. And it's really in the eye of the beholder. It doesn't even mean we're necessarily acting anything out, but it's kind of comparing ourselves to other people and judging ourselves to be better or judging ourselves to be worse, either way. But nonetheless, I think that goes against the very heart of spirituality, which is acceptance and connection rather than judgment and disconnection.
Wow. I don't know what to say to that for the simple reason I did a lot of digging for this show. And I noticed the depth of your mysticism went into a complete lack of consistency, which is truly mystical. in the American sense of the word, not the British sense of the word, where you're advising us at one point to be vegetarian, then at another point not to be vegetarian because it intruded into vegetable rights.
Mm.
So could you clarify that for a humble seeker after the way?
Yeah, I think it was Confucius who said all truth is paradoxical. So, and I also do believe that any great religious text needs to be self-contradictory and confusing beyond usability. So, absolutely, in one video, I'll advocate vegetarianism. In another video, advocate why the merciless killing of helpless plants who are just stuck in the ground, not even able to defend themselves, is the most humane thing we can do. It's really not inhumane, it's in plant humane. And then in the next video, it's we need to be a vegan. And then in the next video, we need to be a meat eater who acts like a vegan. Now, if that doesn't completely clarify it, then obviously you're just not evolved enough to understand.
Oh, I'm doing my absolute best to evolve, JP. I promise.
Well, which, by the way, I think you just offended all the religious fundamentalist viewers, listeners. So I, on behalf of them, I'm offended. And I'm telepathically picking up that a lot of people are resenting you for using the word evolve.
Don't I recall you being offended at one point that other people were offended? Something to do with the hate of Christmas.
Well, I'm offended that you would listen to that. And I'm also offended you said recall. I'm offended that you think there's time. I like to be completely rooted in the now, and the fact that you're not completely changing the trajectory of your life, your beliefs, and how you are to cater to my belief that there only is the now. And if there is only the now, then how could you recall anything? So I think you have really just spit in my face.
I deeply apologize, JP, because I need you to unpack one of the greatest mystical statements I've ever heard. I'm referring, of course, to your theory, your assertion that Ice Cube's Straight Outta Compton is actually an assertion of non-duality. I confess that hasn't struck me. It's incredible insight.
Yeah, wow. I love the question, by the way. Ice Cube is probably my favorite mystic. I don't know if they've sainted him yet, but I think it's just a matter of time. So Saint Ice Cube. Now, getting to the question, to me, it is just obvious that what Compton represents, it's the Garden of Eden. It's oneness. It's absolute consciousness. But how can absolute consciousness know itself? How can you know yourself if you've only been in Compton and never been outside of Compton? So I think the very essence of life is all about coming straight out of Compton so that we can experience ourselves in the illusion of relativity, so that we don't just know ourselves, but we can experience ourselves. So coming straight out of Compton, I think, allows us to live a good life, but we also want to go straight back into Compton once we come straight out of Compton. And the people who never leave Compton just don't have a good experiential life.
So it was absolutely nothing to do with the American correctional facility where criminals are sort of taught better ways.
No, I don't know anything about that or why that would be associated with Compton. To me, it's just as obvious as the light of day that it has to do with the Garden of Eden, the absolute knowing, the non-dual state. I think that's what Ice Cube was advocating. And I think that's what really Ice Cube, what his career was all about. And if you listen to some of his other songs about, popping a cap in someone, murdering people, it's all about reincarnation.
Wow. I'm not sure I'm evolved enough for this conversation. Before I get Paul in, because I know he's eager to ask you a number of questions, particularly about one of his pet theories, the flat Earth, I think. Just just one comment. Every now and again in your video, there are characters that appear that look very strangely like you, but aren't you.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one guy I remember when you were talking about achieving cosmic nirvana, who suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and his hair was short, but he had a remarkable resemblance to you, maybe a family member. And he said, "Well, isn't it all just about getting into heaven?" And I noticed the camera then went back to you talking about the achievement of cosmic consciousness. I mean, are these people relations to you, or is it just, where you feel you have to give the other side an airing every now and again?
Well, these other characters who resemble me, if we look at some of the laws of physics, and most notably I think by far the most credentialed law of physics is the law of attraction. So it says like energies attract. So if I'm handsome, I'm going to attract other handsome people. Thus, you get some people who end up looking a little bit like me in the videos. And by the way, the law of attraction mentioned it's, like energy attracts like energy. And that works just like a magnet. It's the principle of magnetism, where our dominant thoughts will attract a like frequency, like circumstance into our physical reality, just like a magnet. Except with a magnet, opposites attract. But aside from that difference, it is exactly the way a magnet works.
I noticed for that particular show, you had the law of attraction, then underneath it said delusion. Do you think that could have given a false message to people?
Well, if it did, then I would just want to ask those people, why did you attract the false message into your life? What kind of false thoughts have you been thinking in your head that made you manifest such a false message? So the ball's in their court.
Gosh, I stand corrected. Paul, I mean, I remember a previous conversation where we were going to touch on the flat Earth, one of your pet theories as conspiracy boy of the show, of course. What do you make of this remarkable guru figure?
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant having you on the show, JP. Thank you for coming on. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things subjects I'd like to raise. Before we go into the flat Earth one, what are your views on the Illuminati, and do you think we're under serious threat with that?
Yes, I do think we are under serious threat from the Illuminati, and I am a full Illuminati supporter. I really am. I think their cause is much more important than us, and I think they will wipe us out. I think it's in the process. It's already happening, and when we think back to the 1950s, at least here in the U.S., we had so much racism. The black people weren't allowed to vote. And we can look back on that now and say, wow, it was really terrible, closed-minded, just atrocious for white people to look down on black people. Then here we are doing the same thing again, except we're looking down on the Illuminati. Why do people have so much judgment against lizards? What's wrong with giant reptiles? And what's wrong with giant reptiles running the world in the banking system and wanting to drink the blood of our children? Like, I just don't really understand the bigoted mindset of people being so against the Illuminati.
Yeah, that's I've never actually thought about it like that before. So that's, you've given me a brand new perspective on that. So I'll definitely have to think about that one. Okay, so let's move on to the flat Earth then. I mean, this is a theory that's been spreading all over the internet, the flat Earth. Now, when you first look at it, it sounds like so ridiculous and that, and then you kind of have these little ideas and these hang about, is the world flat? I mean, what are your views on that? I know you've covered this subject quite a bit.
Yeah. The world's coming full circle back to the realization, we're progressing so much, in fact, that we're now beginning to come full circle so that we think the way people did several hundred years ago. So we're getting out of this progressive false belief that the world is round. I mean, when people just pull the wool over their eyes and use this thing called evidence to fabricate the reality that the earth is round, it's just a little bit insulting, really. So it's easy to prove that the earth is flat. And one of the ways you can prove the earth is flat is by way of knowing that you can't prove that it's round. And therefore that proves that it's flat. And then other evidence there is, when if there is someone, let's just say someone's driving, they're driving away from you. It's a long, straight road. Why can you still see their car when they're driving away from you? If the earth was round, it would be going down down a vector, and you wouldn't be able to see it. So, it's pretty clear that the aviation industry, several hundred years before the aviation industry began, had a vested interest in engineering the misleading belief that the earth is round. Why? Because if you believe the earth is round, it'll make sense why it takes so long to fly from Australia to Los Angeles, for example. So, therefore, if they keep you in the air longer, they can charge you more money for a flight. But if you look at a flat earth map, getting from Australia to Los Angeles, it's a pretty straight shot. They wouldn't be able to charge you a lot of money for your airline tickets. And then the other thing is, when you look out of an airplane window and you say, wow, the earth sort of looks round from 30,000 feet up high. Well, first off, that's just an illusion. They make airplane windows curved, so it distorts the flat horizon to actually look round. Think about that.
Yeah. No, that's thought-provoking stuff, that is. I think that's something our listeners are definitely gonna ponder on. Some other stuff I'd like to put your way. It'd be interesting to have your views on, being so spiritual and everything. We're seeing a lot of politics around the world at the moment. It's all going crazy with this big sort of adventure of this political shift that's going on, particularly around the Western world at the moment. In the UK, it's with Brexit and the EU parting from each other, and then you have Trump in America, which was very unexpected for a lot of people. What do you think of the political spectrum at the moment that we're involved in?
Yeah, I voted for Gandhi. I'm surprised he didn't get in. I guess there were two things working against him. One, he's not an American, and two, I guess he's dead. So I guess they say your vote counts, but really my vote didn't count for crap. But on a little bit of a different angle to that, if I kind of step into the shoes of seriousness for a second, I do find what's happening in the political world today very interesting. It's, getting somewhat polarized, and I think there's no question whether it's Trump, Brexit, or add all that together, there is a significant amount of reactivity that people are having, a lot of emotional charge that people are experiencing, and I think there's great merit to paying attention to what's happening in our external world. Just a footnote on that: how you pay attention to it, I think we need to rethink how we do that. I know in the U.S., when we watch the news, we are watching a very orchestrated, shaped propaganda expression that's spoon-fed to us. I'm a huge fan of never watching the news. I think it's one of the worst things we can do to our mind. It doesn't teach you how to think. It tells you what to think, and what it tells you to think is very largely not based on what is happening, but it's based on how the corporations that run the news channels, how they want you to perceive what's happening, how they want you to interpret what's happening. So with that said, I think we need to really be careful of okay, how do we take in the world events rather than just taking things in blindly with our mouths open. But I think a lot of people are not just being somewhat informed, but I think a lot of us are losing ourselves into the external reality of what's happening. And I think when we do that, it really bleeds our personal power out. It's like our carotid artery is open up and we're just bleeding out our personal power. How I believe we can regain some of our power is by owning our projections. So how do we know we're projecting our internal reality onto the outer world? Well, some would say we're never not doing that. But I think especially when we're highly emotionally charged, that's the evidence that we are projecting something about ourselves, what Carl Jung might say, something about our undiscovered self onto the world, onto Donald Trump, onto what's happening. And that emotional charge, it might be elated happiness, or it might be at the other end of the spectrum. It might be anger, might be dread. But either way, I think one of the reasons why Donald Trump is a polarizing figure is he's a pretty clear mirror. Yeah, he reflects people's undiscovered selves back to them. Now, in my opinion, if we look at that literally, people would say, well, what I don't like about Donald Trump is he's a bully and sexist, and I'm not a bully or sexist, so I'm not projecting onto him. Well, if we don't just get caught in the concrete consciousness of literal interpretations, but we look at how we experience Donald Trump and then ask ourselves, what does that symbolically represent to me? So if someone saw him as a sexist, what that symbolically represents is, that might be someone who's disrespectful. So right there, we're telling ourselves a story about ourselves. And that doesn't mean our disrespectful tendencies or disrespectful thoughts, feelings, and subconscious material doesn't mean we're necessarily expressing it, but it's there. And I think this beautiful orchestration called life, it wants us to be balanced. And one of the ways that we become balanced is by beginning to know what we don't know about ourselves. So from my perspective, that's why we have two eyes that look outward, but all we do is see what's inward. And it's a little bit of a tricky game because, we think we're seeing what our eyes are pointed at. And indeed, our eyes are pointed at something that's literally not us. But symbolically, how we see that and how we react to it, I think is all about us. So I don't advocate people become disconnected and indifferent from external events. Not at all. I think we should be connected. And I think we should stand for what our values are. In other words, stand for what we stand for. And I think we also need to empower ourselves by connecting into our inner reality just as much. So a little mantra I ask people to walk around with, because especially here in the US, people are losing their crap over Donald Trump. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just saying, in my opinion, we should really connect inward while we lose our crap. So the question I love to ask people, that keep asking themselves, is, okay, what is my experience right now? And what does that say about me? What is my experience of Donald Trump right now? And what does that say about me? It's kind of like getting a little extreme and just pretending that everything I like about a person, don't like it about a person, is 100% a story about me. Now that sounds good on paper, and I guarantee we've all heard some variation of that idea. And a lot of us would probably agree, oh, yeah, that sounds good on paper. It might even sound true. However, when we get emotionally charged, that's when it's so tempting to buy into our story about the other person and become exclusively blind to how it truly is a projected story about ourselves. So when we're emotionally charged, that's typically when we lose ourselves the most and become unwilling to see what's looking through our eyes, in my delusional opinion. I know I got a little long-winded on that question. I got on my soapbox of having an opinion. And P.S., all of that is my opinion. It's just delusional, redheaded, blue-eyed perspective.
No, that's. I thought that made perfect sense. I think it's very relevant at the moment. One thing, as exciting as politics seems to be getting at the moment with what's going on, it's also, as you kind of put it, it's a lot of people are putting their energy into these people and expecting, almost like not losing control themselves. So I think that's a very relevant point for people to think about. Is don't get lost in it too much. I mean, it's important stuff, but remember that us ourselves are actually we're the ones in this society that make it what it is. So we're the ones ultimately that control it and make it what it is.
That's a lot of radical self-responsibility. Yeah. I love that. And I think when people are rooted in the kind of the victim position, the victim archetype, which we all do at times, but when people are stuck in it at the moment, they want to hear no part of that, your message there of radical self-responsibility. But I think it's such a great message.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that you basically kind of answered my other question that I was going to, all in one go there. So that was great. So I'm going to bring David back into this. I'm sure he's itching to get stuck in again.
Sounds like he might have a fungal infection if he's itching.
Yeah, he gets a lot of those, he does.
That would be telling. Oh God, I feel so naked without my Tibetan bow. JP, I don't want to talk about lizard people. I don't want to talk about false moons and Saturn being some sort of bizarre broadcasting station keeping us all on our knees, as tempting as that is. I want to talk about detoxing. You seem very proud of your physique, your yogic skills, your vast knowledge of nutrition, and the need for us all to detox regularly. Would you care to give us some more insight into that? I'm sure our viewers are desperate to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I think, one of the purposes of life is to become toxic so that we can fulfill a greater purpose of life, which is detoxing. And some of the most powerful ways to detox, in fact, one of them is by avoiding toxins. And really, simply all you have to do to avoid toxins is stay completely away from any food that has pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, GMOs, anything wrapped in plastic, microwaves, alcohol, staying away from traditional household cleaning products, laundry detergent, traditional toothpaste, traditional clothing, carpeting, household paint, not touching cell phones, and not breathing the air outside. So really, when you think about it, staying free of toxins is pretty elementary.
Gosh. I mean, let's get to grips. Let's get to cases. One of your remarkable shows was examining the obvious parallels between general practitioners, orthodox medicine doctors, and yogis. I mean, what sort of first guided you to realize the reciprocity between these groups, and indeed how doctors are failing in the light of true yoga?
Yeah, I think the yoga community is all about alternative healthcare, and I think the alternative healthcare, whether that's acupuncture, Reiki, saying mantras, setting intention, using the law of attraction to bring healing into your life. And And I think really the time and place for alternative health care is everywhere, every time. And unfortunately, that's not the world we live in yet. Yet. And I think the place where alternative healthcare is needed the most is in acute emergency injury situations. So, if you have a ruptured appendix, and you go to the hospital and they'll want to cut that out of you because you'll die within a few hours. But that's a pretty invasive procedure to have surgery, have your appendix cut out. I want to see the research go into, well, what happens if you use a healing mantra for a few weeks? How's that going to help heal your appendix? And it's way more natural. If you've had a broken bone, why do we just all of a sudden jump into either surgery and or getting a cast? Why don't we ever think about, how did I manifest this broken bone through my dominant thoughts? Or why haven't I ever tried just lighting some sage to cleanse the negative entities and the dark energy that are surrounding me that caused the broken bone in the first place? So I think there is a huge, huge potential for research to really validate the significance that alternative healing can have in acute medical situations.
Gosh, I mean, I need to confess. I mean, I've had friends like you before. I mean, I'm a 70s kid, so one of the things that was always thrown in their faces, forgive me for a moment of negativity, JP, was that they were basically trying to drag people back into the ignorant dark ages because they didn't have a clue what they were talking about. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think I would respond with indifferent silence. I think, and by think, I mean I know. I think I know that I think. Yes, I know that my indifferent silence would really transmit more love and light than my words ever could. And if there's one thing that we know for sure, it's that when you tell people your opinion and why they're wrong, like almost 100% of the time, we always change their mind. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. That's why politics, there's such good communication. We cut down the other person, tell them why they're wrong and why we're right. And it's like, well, we always change their mind. But even more powerful than that 100% success rate would be the 200% success rate of saying nothing. I mean, who speaks a more powerful message, a silent monk or Donald Trump? Or what's the difference? But I think there's a big difference.
Gosh. I'll ask Paul to come back in after this. You seem very aware of Trump's vibration, by the way. That's very impressive. I mean,
he vibrates at the frequency of orange.
Incredible. Incredible. I mean, how are people, relating to your message, JP? I imagine you're becoming better known by the microsecond. You're being praised from Tibet, from Lhasa to Beijing. How are people, reacting to what you're saying?
Yeah, the wise ones get it. And if I could borrow your derivative of your word, evolve, the unevolved ones don't get it. And I understand why. They're not evolved enough. Better said, they haven't evolved enough to be evolved enough to get it. And, actually, 1 second. I'm just getting a call. I thought that was the Dalai Lama coming through as someone else, and the name starts with Dalai. So I enjoy the praise. I really do, and I think the problem with the spiritual teachings that have come thus far before me is the teachings are only spiritual. And I think the only thing worse than not being spiritual is only being spiritual. And that's why I teach ultra spirituality. And then I've been doing that through videos, and I'll continue to do that through videos. And then, recently I've really gotten frustrated. And usually I like to pretend that I don't have human emotions, but I'll acknowledge that I got frustrated. I've been looking at all the holy books, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, all of Deepak Chopra's 97 books. And the problem I found with all those holy books is that they're just holy. So as the bringer of not the new age, but the newer age of ultra spirituality, I decided to benefit humanity the best I can, serve them well. Humanity needs a holier book. So that's why I decided to bring fresh perspectives of ultra spirituality into the world through my new book, the only holier book that's ever been written, How to Be Ultra Spiritual.
I promise I will rush to the shops and buy one. I've got to be cheeky and ask one last thing before Paul comes back in. I notice you as possibly an avatara. Even you have trouble with finding ultra spiritual girlfriends. I mean, why is that?
That's a good question. Part of the reason why I've been having trouble finding ultra spiritual girlfriends is because I've just been looking for a girlfriend. And why not try polyamory for a change? Why not be unconditionally loving? Why do we put borders and limitations on our love life? So I'm looking forward to bringing the plural form of ultra spiritual girlfriends into my life and freely loving them. And of course, they're not free to love anybody else but me, because we just agree men and women are biologically different. So I think that's a big part of it. And of course, you know how it's really hard to look into a bright light? I'm guessing that's a challenge women have had with me.
Oh, it all makes sense to me. Paul, address the holy avatar. What are you thinking about all this?
Well, it's all very interesting stuff, and there is something kind of touching on what you were talking about just then. Sort of going further into that, thinking about feminism in general, the political stuff and the spiritual stuff. I mean, looking at your website, you've got like a ribbon round your head with a flower in your hair and stuff. So you look like a guy that's perhaps in touch with the feminine spiritual thing going on there. What's your views on feminism and all that kind of stuff?
I wish there was only feminism. I'm a much bigger fan of women than I am men. And I think there's a force out there that's really against feminism. And that force is the transgender movement, obviously, because it's all about being gender neutral, which is a very sleight of hand way of trying to sweep feminism under the rug and get rid of it. And it's trying to sweep masculinism under the rug as well. So I'm certainly concerned, and big fan of feminism with a capital F.
Okay, well, I mean, if we look at the Western religions, the Abrahamic faiths and so on, they're very masculine orientated, although there's the feminine that's implicit in a lot of areas. It's kind of very masculine orientated and dominant. Would you say we're looking into a time now where feminine spirituality is blossoming and coming back?
Well, from a religious perspective, everybody's always had the impression that God's a man. And it makes sense. I mean, why wouldn't you want a God with a penis and testicles and a scrotum? It's just like, makes sense. I don't know why, but it does make sense. It doesn't make sense that it makes sense. And I think when we get to spirituality rather than religious, we get into the idea of a transgender God. Now, a transgender God doesn't, and a gender fluid God, not just transgender. So that's different than how feminism would be hurt by transgenderism. But a transgender, gender fluid God promotes everything. It really does. So at this point, I've completely lost sight of what the question was, but my intuition tells me that that was the answer.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, yeah, that kind of was the answer. I mean, I was just kind of touching on the whole feminism thing because obviously there's a lot of it going on at the moment, especially politically on the streets and stuff. So it was something that I just wanted to throw your way.
Yeah, in fact, in the U.S., I mean, some people, I know they're in the U.K., you're probably completely out of touch with what's going on in the U.S. So let me fill you in.
Okay.
The movement of feminism has never been happier than to have a supportive leader like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Feminism everywhere. We just had marches all across our country where all the feminists are there pledging their support and gratitude to Donald Trump. It's really just, I mean, breathtaking and touching.
Yeah, no, I've kind of seen that myself. It's although sometimes it comes across as kind of this angry sort of reaction. It's almost like more excitement sometimes. It's like an
passionate excitement.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying with that. Well, we are pressing towards that time. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap it up soon. David, is there anything you'd like to add? Because this has been a groovy chat.
What can I say to this light of Africa, this illumination to us all? JP, our listeners, of course, will be on their knees and desperate to spend money in your direction. How can they get in touch with you? How can they approach someone as ultra spiritual as yourself?
Yeah, well, you can. I'm touched by the lovely question that some people would want to. A couple ways. All my social media handles are Awaken with JP. And I do have a book coming out that's going to be hitting the shelves soon. It's available for pre-order now. And you can get that all the normal places, Amazon.com. And there's also a page, How to Be Ultra Spiritual, that's set up that'll make it super easy for you to get your hands on my new book, which I put my heart and soul into. And that would be the place to avoid if you want no part of that. And David and Paul, thank you guys so much for having me on. You guys are... man, I'm worried about you guys. You would invite me on and let us be little kids acting the way we've acted. I mean, it's been an absolute joy, but I am worried about you guys. You're so irresponsible to bring an irresponsible guy like me on. And it's just been an absolute joy. I appreciate you guys so much.
No, it's been our pleasure. Definitely. It's been a good one to have. Definitely.
JP, on the level of my intuition, I know that everything is well. Thank you. Thank you for being on our show.
You're welcome, brother.
Well, we certainly hope to have you back on again soon as well. So
yeah, I would be delighted to come on. Even if you guys don't invite me, I'll be delighted to come on and be an intruder anyway.
That sounds awesome.
That was the Mahaguru JP Sears. Namaste, namaste. What did you think of that remarkable and enlightening force on THA Talks?
Very, very enlightening, and it just goes to show you sometimes a little bit of humour is all you need, and it can clarify things sometimes, can't it?
I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't sense any humour there at all. In fact, it so offended me. I thought it was beyond serious.
Well, you did offend him at the start. I think you should email him after the show and apologise for offending him earlier on in the show.
Yeah, I offended him pretty early, but what can you do? I'm not on the ultra spiritual level he's on.
Notice I didn't offend him.
Comes back.
Notice I didn't offend him, though. I thought me and him got on quite well, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you were going to ask him the obvious ginger question, which you didn't.
I didn't actually. Well, next time he's on, we'll have to discuss his gingerness and how it all came about.
I mean, I have noticed some of his enemies. I hope that's not the too strong a word I'm using there. They have mentioned it on some of the comments underneath the YouTube programs. How awful can people be? My God, is there no mercy?
David?
Can you hear me?
David?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I just thought I'd wind you up a little bit then, because it's been one of them kind of shows.
I'm sorry, Paul. I can't respond to that. I'm enlightened now.
Right. Well, anyway, that's all we've got time for, I think, today. Is there anything else you'd like to quickly throw out there? What about a possible extremist club this Tuesday coming up or something like that?
Yeah, we're back in action. First extremist club, year 3. Last Tuesday of every month. Next Tuesday at the Old Coffee House. We've got a remarkable series of speakers. Our lovely Vladimir Wiedemann talking about the new geopolitics. We've got Neil Weatherall, the impresario and raconteur, talking about his new play, The Playboy Riots. We've got Andrew Ray, of course, our resident Anglo-Saxon poet, and young Silvio Mares, who will be delivering Charlie Chaplin's speech on freedom. Hey, and it's donation only. What more do you want?
Yes, and of course, a great social evening as well, with lots of interesting people to chat to and meet, and a good bit of networking as well. So I shall be there, David will be there, and we hope to see you there as well. That is all we got time for, so thank you for tuning in. Please keep telling your friends about the show, keep linking the show, and more importantly, keep downloading the show, because we like it when you do that. Till the next time, stay cool, stay brave, and we're going to be looking forward to speaking with you real soon. Bye.
Jazzy.